Satan, in answer to that, comes up with more addictive things, more salt, more sauces, more meaty products. The ribs that you get, with the sauces that you buy when you go to the meat counters and you see these they plat them and they put them on sticks and skewers, and you can have all the different sauces, all the things to stimulate the taste buds, so that when the Lord calls you back, like he did with John, and he said, John the Baptist, I'd like you to have a simple diet, one of locusts. That's not locust like wings and legs, that's locusta, the husks and the pods of the carob tree. I would like you to eat carob plants and honey. Basic diet, brothers and sisters. So will God's people at the end of time be getting to a basic diet. And she clearly says in her writings, it will soon be as God in the beginning designed it should be. No meat will be used by his people. Vegetables, fruits, and grains should compose our diet. Not an ounce of flesh, meat, should enter our stomachs. The eating of flesh is unnatural. It might taste good, but we are to return to God's original purpose in the creation of man. Our original purpose is not to fill our stomachs. Our original purpose is to tell the universe about Jesus Christ. And over and over and over, whether it was with Israel or whether it was with Israel going into Canaan, either with the quails or with the grapes, the Lord has brought his people back in line and tried. Even with Daniel, go and read what it says in Daniel 1, and you read the verses from 12 to 20. Daniel's diet was different. He even said to the king, you test us, give us 10 days, and you test us on a vegetable and water diet versus the others. And they laughed at him. They said, you need the meat. You need meat. You need the rich foods from the king's table. He said, well, just give us 10 days to test it. And I encourage you, test it for 10 days and see whether your back pains don't get released or be relieved. Look whether your headaches, if you drink more water, if the headaches don't disappear. Try and get rid of the addictions, brothers and sisters. Satan wants addictions. The holy place is where you find things like coffee, smoking, and all these addictions, alcohol. The most holy place, you will not find that doctrine there. So when I preach this, as we should, from the most holy, trying to get people to realize, most people think that we're being judgmental. It's so difficult to find the balance. Most people say to me, but that's salvation by plate. Righteousness by plate. You think you're going to go to heaven because you keep the Sabbath. You think you're going to go to heaven because you're eating. No, we don't. But we understand that because of what Jesus has done for us, when we understand his requirements, we are glad to submit to his authority. And the Lord will clean up at the end of time an Israel that will become pure again for him. You know what? Somebody said to me the other day, what you are teaching is that only vegans are going to go to heaven. I said, no, not at all. There won't even be any vegans in heaven. They said, what do you mean there won't be vegans in heaven? I said, well, our diet is going to consist of fruits. So there'll only be fruitarians in heaven. So forget about being a vegan and that righteousness, I'm going to go to heaven because I'm eating right. It's not about that. It's about making sure that the frontal lobe is in control of the stimulation, rather than not being able to say no because of the stimulation which overrides the frontal lobe. That's all the Lord is trying to show us. And the Lord says through Sister White that the health reform I was shown is a part of the third angel's message, and is just as closely connected with it as are the arm with the hand and the human body. It is impossible for those, listen to these words, it is impossible for those who make free use of flesh meats to have an unclouded brain and an active intellect. The reason why the health reform is part of the third angel's message. Remember the third angel's message? If you choose the beast, you'll receive the mark of the beast in the forehead or on the hand. The reason it's in the forehead is because this is the frontal lobe. And Sister White is explaining what the Lord's requirement is. She says, it's impossible to have a clear mind, an unclouded brain, and still eat meat. Now, the health reform is not about eating meat. There's many aspects to it, far too much for me to even hint about in this lecture. But I would like to encourage you to try, because that is the place where we can start. And that's all I'm doing, is I'm getting people to start there and move slowly towards greater and greater blessings. My grandfather used to go once a year on a 30-day orange fast. All he would eat would be oranges. And he wasn't Adventist. It was just one thing that he decided, because he wanted his reason, his higher power, to be in control of his lower power. And after 2 or 3 days, he would feel all floppy and weak. And he said, but after that, something changed. And by a week into his only water and orange diet, his mind would be as sharp as a razor. He could think of, it was unbelievable. He says, unless you've experienced it, you wouldn't know what I'm talking about. Today, the Lord's asking for the same thing. He says, people, please understand that at the end of time, your minds are going to have to be as sharp as a razor. And if they are clouded with the gunk that you get from animal products, please realize that there's going to be a call for God's people to come back into line. What about health and endurance? Surely if you eat a plant-based diet, you get sick. Well, I eat a plant-based diet. I travel all over the world. I have an incredibly tight and difficult schedule. I can't remember what the inside of a doctor's rooms look like. I really don't know what a doctor, I wouldn't even know why to go to a doctor. But the Lord has shown the only way for me to maintain this pace that I have to maintain is stick as closely to the health laws that He's given in the spirit of prophecy. A friend of mine, he's in his mid to late 40s. He gets on his bicycle and he cycles all the way to Richards Bay. This is 600-700 kilometers on a bicycle. He only eats, has no sugar, takes no sugar in. He only eats plant-based foods. You know that in the cycling club in which he's in, the young people are not able to come close to him. He's one of these guys wears all that fancy gear like you see on the Tour de France. He only eats plant-based foods, and he is at the front, and he's in his late 40s. What about endurance? Well, after the second or third day, all the guys are falling off their bikes, and he's happily pedaling away. He tours in South Africa. He goes from Johannesburg down to Cape Town. That's almost 1,500 kilometers. And he turns around and comes back again, and there's no problem. There's no stiff muscles, etc., etc., etc. She says quite clearly that he who indulges self must bear the penalty. In the judgment, we will see how seriously God rewards the violation of the laws of health. We will only see in the judgment how seriously God regards the violation of the laws of health. Then, as we take a retrospective view of our course of action, we shall see what knowledge of God we might have gained, what noble characters we might have formed if we had taken the Bible as our counselor. And this is the question: are you going to do it or not? The Lord is calling His people back as it was in the days of Noah. I want to show you a video clip, and I want to share with you a wonderful moment that happened a while ago. People in the UK, they brought up a lion. They got a lion cub, but they lived in an apartment. And the Lord, I beg your pardon, and these people looked after this lion for a period of time, but they realized they couldn't do it for much longer. So they gave the lion over to a sanctuary in Africa. And much time passed, and they went back. The lion had grown up. And they went and had a look. They flew to Africa to see whether they could see this lion. And as they were walking into the sanctuary, they started to call. And there they saw this lion approaching. And I want you to watch this moment. The Lord is leading God's people back to as it was, not only in the days of Noah, but through the days of Noah, as it was in the Garden of Eden. Have a look at this lion's reaction when he saw his people. There you can see the lion coming, and they don't know what his reaction is going to be. Look what happens. They're calling him and calling him. And what's going to happen? What? Oh, big trouble. Watch. Oh. Look at that.